I want to welcome all the members and staff to the November 15th special meeting of the DASNY board. I would tell you that it's a beautiful day in New York City, but I'm not allowed to say that anymore, so I can't tell you. I'm sorry, that wasn't even funny. We have a
now it's funny.
Thank you, John. Thank you very much.
How was your view, Mr. Gardner?
Whenever a joke doesn't work, just stay with it. Eventually it'll happen.
It's good advice. Thank you, John. We're having a meeting at 3 separate locations. We have John Gardner in Buffalo. We have Sandra Shepard, John Vallatudo, and forgive me, who else is in Albany?
Adrian Berzeski and Beth Berlin is here as well.
Well, thank you both for joining the meeting. I can't see you, or I'd be able to, or I'd know that on my own. So forgive me. There's not a lot of light in the room. I guess I see Elizabeth Down. Good to have you with us, and thank you very much for making this special meeting. Here in the office, we've got Paul Ellis, we've got Gerard Ronsky, Darrell Snyder, and myself. And with that, we will move into the agenda for the meeting, which commences with the
John Johnson, just for the fact that I am participating by phone, even though I'm not in an official location.
Forgive me, John. I intended to include you in my recitation of people who are in the meeting, although you are not here as a voting member of the meeting. And forgive me for that oversight. We will go right into the Finance Committee report. The Finance Committee report will be given by the Chairman, Mr. Romsky.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We met a few minutes ago in New York City, and also by way of the video in Albany and as well as Buffalo. And we discussed 3 offerings. We started with Memorial Sloan Kettering. We recommend, after some discussion, that be approved for advancement at today's meeting. We then discussed the Fordham University offering. Similarly, we recommend that be approved, and we then advance to St. John's University. After some brief discussion, we also recommend that be approved, and that concludes my report, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jerry. We'll move directly then to a discussion of the resolutions which the Finance Committee has reported out and recommended for approval. Shall I do it, or do you? Forgive me.
Go ahead.
Thank you. If you look behind tab 2, you'll see the credit summary for Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center. That transaction will be presented by Matt Bergen.
Thank you, and good morning, everyone. This staff report provided to the members presents a 30-year bond issue in an amount not to exceed $465 million on behalf of Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center, which is located in Manhattan. There's a number of projects, and I'll walk you through each one of them. So the projects that we're considering this morning include a portion of the construction of an ambulatory care center in Manhattan, which is approximately $50 million in our bond proceeds. This is the David H. Koch Cancer Center, Center for Cancer Care at East 74th Street by the FDR Drive, which is a 760,000 square foot building that was primarily funded with taxable bonds and philanthropy. Significant construction has taken place, and the DASNY bond issue will be primarily for a single occupancy 16-bed inpatient unit. The planned population for the 16-bed inpatient unit includes patients requiring inpatient chemotherapy and interventional radiology. In addition to the inpatient beds, there may also be the financing of the build-out of outpatient practice space. In addition, bond proceeds will be used for a portion of the construction of an ambulatory care center in Uniondale, New York, out on Long Island, in the approximate amount of $83 million. This portion of the project will provide funds to relocate a regional network outpatient clinical program that's currently located in Rockville Center to a freestanding facility on Hempstead Turnpike in Uniondale, New York. Located for the convenience of Long Island residents, Memorial Sloan Kettering Nassau Outpatient Center will provide cancer care in an outpatient setting while minimizing the need to travel to Manhattan for its patients. Over half of the project costs will be provided from the hospital's cash flow generated from operations, as well as philanthropy and intercorporate loans from Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center. And again, our portion of the project will be approximately $83 million in bonds. In addition, bond proceeds will be used for the conversion of a steam heating system at various facilities from a steam-based system to a hot water-based system for heating and hot water, including the installation of boilers. Now, in the staff report, this was noted as being $110 million. However, the institution feels that they would like to provide some equity for this project in the amount of approximately $20 million, freeing up $20 million for the borrowing. They have given us a late request that they fund approximately $20 million in hospital equipment located at their hospital facility, which is 1275 York Avenue. And finally, the institution is looking at refunding all or a portion of DASNY's Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center Revenue Bonds 2015 Series 1 in the amount of $91.8 million, and the refunding of DASNY's Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center Revenue Bonds Series 2016-1 in the amount of $106.8 million, depending on the economics. Both of these bond issues were privately placed. To speak about the security features, they will include a general obligation of the Center Corporation, as well as guarantees from Sloan Kettering Institute for Cancer Research and SKI Realty, Inc. As this is a publicly offered bond issue, the expected ratings are AA3, AA-, and AA. Regarding Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center, this is a multi-billion-dollar corporation with nearly $9.9 billion in total assets, just over $4.1 billion in total liabilities, and over $5.7 billion in net assets. Through September 30th of this year, an operating gain of $205.6 million was recorded on approximately $3.29 billion of operating revenue. Regarding utilization, outpatient visits have increased recently, which is indicative of the shift in the delivery of cancer care to the outpatient setting. The expansion of the hospital's regional network of outpatient sites has been a major contributor to the growth in outpatient visits. And finally, this AA-rated institution is world-renowned and is the premier institution for setting the standard of cancer care. Countless discoveries and clinical research have occurred here that have led to innovations in all areas of cancer diagnosis and treatment. Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Matt. First of all, let me commend you on the quality of the summary. I enjoyed reading it. A lot of things that I did not know generally about MSK. It's a very well done piece. Thank you for providing it. Are there questions for Matt?
Yes,
Sandra.
Mr. Chairman. On the refunding issue, the staff material notes that Memorial Sloan Kettering was still looking at what there might be in terms of savings in the refunding. I wonder if you could give us an update on that, Matt.
You know, I've been in contact with Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center. I do not have an update on savings. And again, these were privately placed bonds. Looking at the staff report, the privately placed bonds contain provisions that allow the banks to change their rates if the tax rate of the bank changes. Again, the institution is still determining the savings impact and would like the flexibility to include these if economically advantageous.
And just for the record, to confirm then that they would not go ahead unless the economics were good. There's not some other reason why they would be refunded.
That is my understanding. But that's the way it's been presented to me, that they are looking for the economic advantage if the tax rate of the banks changes.
Right. And Sandra, I think that given the changing nature of the discussions in Washington, that poses some challenges in terms of trying to figure out what the economic impact is, which is why it's taking a little bit of time to, for them to get their arms around that issue. But clearly we are coming back for adoption of documents. So there'll be another opportunity to present to the board.
Terrific. Thank you for adding that.
Okay.
So Sandra, you'll have another chance to find out if Matt stays in touch with them, and I'm sure he will. Maybe they will have completed. They will have some sense going forward of what those savings might be, and this will come back before the board on the 29th of November.
we're working as quickly as we can to get all these transactions back before the board.
Okay. Thank you, Portia. I didn't mean to
Yep.
put you in the corner. Are there other questions for Matt?
Yes, I also have a question on the new money side, a timing question, really. Portia, you just referred to events in Washington. We're all looking at the possible deadline there. How confident are we that they're going to be able to get in the market with the new money piece?
The due diligence required by tax counsel, their institution counsel. Obviously, they have to get the institution section of the POS updated. The seeker analysis appears to be in good shape, so we are hoping that by the end of this month, we're going to be in a pretty good position as far as having the due diligence and the documents done. Hopefully, we can get on the November 29th agenda. We also have to go to the Public Authorities Control Board, but everybody is pushing to be in the market as soon as we can.
And I assume we've had some conversations with people at Public Authorities Control Board who are as well-versed as we are on the
Yes, that's correct.
Timing issues.
That's correct.
Good. Thank you. That's good to hear.
Other questions for Matt? Hearing none, may I have a motion, please, to approve the transaction? Mr. Romsky, thank you very much. Is there a second? Mr. Ellis, thank you very much. There being no further questions, all in favor, please indicate with aye.
Aye.
Aye. Are there any opposed? And the motion carries unanimously, and the transaction at this stage is approved. The second, sorry, go ahead, Troy.
Behind tab 3 is the Fordham University transaction. David Ostrander will present the credit summary and staff report.
Thank you. Good morning. The staff report provided to the members presents one or more series of tax-exempt and/or taxable, fixed and/or variable rate bonds in an amount not to exceed $105 million on behalf of Fordham University. Bond proceeds from the Series 2017 bonds are expected to be used to advance, refund all or a portion of DASNY Series 2011A bonds. The fixed rate Series 2011 A bonds have a current par amount outstanding of $88,945,000 and reach final maturity on July 1st, 2036. The final maturity of the refunding bonds will not exceed that final maturity of the bonds to be refunded. Assuming current market conditions, total net present value savings in the range of $8.8 million or 9.9% of the refunded bonds is expected to be achieved through the proposed refunding. As far as financing structure, the plan for this transaction is a public offering of tax-exempt fixed-rate bonds. And again, there'll be no extension of debt, and the expectation is that there will be level savings. As far as security, Fordham is currently rated A2 by Moody's and A by S&P. In accordance with DASNY's financing guidelines for independent institutions, Fordham qualifies for an unsecured borrowing with a rating of A3, A- or better. As such, the loan agreement for the Series 2017 bonds will be a general unsecured obligation of the university with no security interest in any revenues or assets of the university required to be granted by the university under the loan agreement. Demand and enrollment at Fordham remains strong. Applications have increased by 31.5% over 5 years, and full-time equivalent enrollment reached a 5-year high of 14,243 FTEs for the fall of 2016. Management indicates that applications for the fall of 2017 have increased over the previous year. Fordham continues to report positive operating results despite significant capital spending in recent years. While operating margins began to thin in both fiscal 2016 and 2017 due to large capital expenditures at the Lincoln Center campus, margins did average $22.3 million over the last 5 years. And that is essentially the decrease in expendable net assets is really a strategic decision by management to not incur additional debt for those projects. Similar to its peers, Fordham does rely heavily on tuition and fees and other student-related revenue. Tuition and fees accounted for 71% of the university's total revenue for fiscal year 2017. That is somewhat mitigated by the diverse program offering at Fordham. And lastly, Fordham's debt service coverage levels over the last 5 years have been strong, averaging 3-to-1 since fiscal year 2013. And this transaction will really only positively impact that ratio, lowering annual debt service for the university. Chairman.
Thank you very much, David. Are there any questions for David? Hearing none. May I have a motion, please, to approve the transaction? Beryl, thank you. Thank you very much. Paul, is that a second?
Yes.
Thank you. There being no further questions, all in favor, please indicate with aye.
Aye.
Aye. Are there any opposed? Then the motion carries unanimously and the transaction at this stage is approved.
And Mr. Chairman, just for the record, I'd like to disclose that one of my daughters is attending Fordham. Thank you.
And doing well.
And liking Fordham.
And enjoying Fordham. Finally, the last transaction to be considered at the special meeting is a transaction for St. John's University, and that transaction will be presented by Stephen Cozier. Steve?
Thank you. The board is being asked to adopt a resolution to proceed for a fixed and/or variable rate, tax-exempt and/or taxable bond issue with a not-to-exceed amount of $88 million on behalf of St. John's University. The university has been a DASNY client for nearly 50 years and has always met its obligations to DASNY on time and in full. The proposed bond issue will advance refund all or a portion of the university's fixed-rate Series 2012A and Series 2012B bonds, which is anticipated to result in net present value savings of approximately $3.2 million, or 6.5% of the bonds being refunded. Bond proceeds are also expected to be used to fix out a portion of the university's variable rate Series 2008B bonds, which will result in a more conservative overall debt mix in a relatively low interest rate environment. There will be no extensions of the final maturities of the bonds being refunded. Expected ratings are A3 by Moody's and A- by S&P. Therefore, per DASNY's financing guidelines, the loan agreement for the Series 2017 bonds is expected to be a general unsecured obligation. Security pledged by the university under loan agreements for prior bonds issued by DASNY will remain in place until those bonds are no longer outstanding. There is no new money being proposed and no extension of debt or principal deferral. However, I would like to provide the board with a brief overview of the university's enrollment, operations, and liquidity. The university is highly dependent on student-related charges, with 71% of 2017 revenues coming from net tuition and 14% of revenues coming from auxiliaries. Enrollment has increased from its 5-year low of 16,459 FTEs in fall 2014 to its 5-year high of 17,235 students last year. Enrollment benefited from the university increasing its tuition discount rate from 35% in 2013 to 41% in 2017. St. John's has also changed its enrollment strategies to focus its resources on those areas that produce the greatest yield. This strategy led to its matriculation ratio improving from 10% to 18% over the past 5 years. The university has a history of conservative budgeting and managing its expenses well in relation to its revenues. Operating profits have averaged $26 million over the past 5 years, and the university expects an operating surplus on a budgetary basis of over $20 million in the current fiscal year. The university's liquidity has improved substantially over the past 5 years, primarily due to the sale of a property in Manhattan in 2014, as well as operating profits and investment returns over the past 5 years. Unrestricted net assets increased from $360 million in 2013 to nearly $650 million in 2017. The 2017 viability ratio of 1.2 compares favorably to the 2016 DASNY median of 0.7 and indicates the ability of St. John's University to cover 120% of its existing debt with expendable net assets. So in conclusion, staff is requesting the board to adopt a resolution to proceed for a refunding that will produce significant savings to the university and move it into a more conservative debt mix. And while the staff report requests maximum flexibility, including a private placement, the expectation here is this will be a public offering. Mr. Chairman.
Steve, thank you very much. Are there questions for Steve? Yes, Paul.
Steve, the report noted softening for the graduate degrees. Is that material in their overall financial results?
No, I don't think so. I mean, their undergraduate enrollment has gone up by about 900 students, while the graduate has gone down by about 100 students on an FTE basis. So it's, I think the programs they mentioned that were softening were in their graduate education and law degrees, which seems to be a trend for similar institutions in higher education. So I think they're managing it well by offsetting it with the undergraduate increases.
Okay, thanks for that. And my other question, the strategy regarding focusing on reduced areas, is that geographic areas or what? I assumed it was geographic, but it wasn't clear.
Yeah, it's primarily geographic, but they're also looking at other demographics of the students that they're targeting. I don't have a lot of the specifics, but it's mostly geographic in the areas that produce the greatest yield.
Is that viewed and clearly applications goes down, but matriculation goes up? Is that I gather that overall that's a net financial plus, that strategy?
Certainly, they're
or at least
they're spending fewer resources on the marketing to certain areas. As you pointed out, their applications have decreased substantially since fall of 2013. Their acceptances ratio has gone up as a result, but they're getting more students, so they're spending less and getting more just by focusing on key areas.
And is there any concern that sort of strategy would, if that reduces their applicant pool, that they have a less diversified applicant pool and they're more susceptible to changes in that pool, I suppose, or regional issues?
So, yeah, certainly, and I think that's leveling off at this point. They've now reduced their applications to 28,000. I think they expect current year's applications to be somewhere around where last year's was. But I mean, they still have a very diverse student body. I think there's students from nearly every state, over 100, nearly 120 countries. So, it's not like they're just focusing on New York and the areas around here, but maybe certain locations within different states and countries. Not focusing on really chasing everybody. So.
Got it. Thank you. I have no further questions.
Thank you, Paul. Are there other questions for Steve? Hearing none.
Sandra has a question up here.
Oh, I'm sorry, Sandra. I didn't see.
The point was made in the Finance Committee that some private colleges are experiencing declines in enrollment. Paul was just raising issues about it. John Johnson made the point in regard to Fordham that a relatively small percentage of their students came from New York. I wonder if we have that same number for St. John's.
Yeah, I think it's a little higher for St. John's. I think roughly 60% of their students come from New York, where I think Fordham was in the 30% range. So it is a little more central focus. But again, they do have a wide cast of locations that they get their students from, nearly all the states in 120 countries. And the board will probably recall, 10 or 20 years ago, St. John's really started converting to a commuter or a residential school, whereas prior to that it was purely a commuter school. So they've increased the ability to go out and market to those other areas. So I think they're managing it well. And on the Excelsior program, the St. John's University has opted into the Enhanced Tuition Award Program, which is the private school, equivalent of the Excelsior program. So it's too early to tell really see what the impact of that is and how many students have taken advantage of that program. But I think they're one of 30 of the 90 eligible schools that opted into that program.
Well, I take your point that it's too early too, and we're reacting to newspaper articles even today about it, and perhaps ongoing SED could be helpful with us in knowing what's happening to the New York portion of applicants, not just overall applications. It's something that we can be watching.
Yeah, it's certainly something we should drill down into and keep an eye on.
Thank you.
Are there other questions for Steve?
The basketball team is 2-0.
Are you asking whether he knows that?
Are they really?
Yeah, they're playing well.
All right. Hearing none, may I have a motion, please, to approve the transaction? Thank you, John Valatudo. Is there a second? Thank you, Gerard Bromsky. All in favor, please indicate with aye. Aye. Are there any opposed? The motion carries unanimously. A couple of comments here at the end of the meeting. All 10 board members are in attendance today, 9 voting, for a special meeting that was called only a week ago. It's my view that indicates, beyond any question, this board's willingness and ability to adapt to the changing environment and to the needs of its clients. And I think it's important to note that. I'm extremely pleased that you could all be here. And I know John can't vote, John Johnson, because he's on the phone, but he has taken the time to be in this meeting, and I'm very grateful to all of you for doing that. Is there any other business to come before this board?
Just, Alan, just tell us, confirm for us what the expected ongoing schedule is.
I can. We will meet again, it appears, on the 29th of September. And again on the 6th of December. So it's at least likely that there will be 2 additional special meetings before we go into our next regularly scheduled meeting, which is on the 13th of December. That is the current plan, Sandra, and I hope all of you can make it, but remember that we need a quorum of 6, so we need at least 6 members to be present and accounted for in order to consider the transactions that will be presented at the next meeting.
And the 2 special meetings would both be at 10 a.m.?
That's the plan now, Sandra, unless there are members who would prefer a different time.
No.
Then yes,
can I emphasize the value of email reminders? I like them because I get them, I'm at my computer, I can make sure they're in the calendar, I can set up all kinds of, warnings.
Thank you, John Gardner. May I also suggest that where possible, it would be great to get all the material at one time, such that it isn't necessary for there to be 2 mailings for a special meeting. I mean, I know it may not be possible in each of the 2 upcoming special meetings, but if we can do that, it would certainly make the review a lot easier.
We'll do our best.
I know you will. So, is there any other business to come before this board? Budget's not going to present today.
No. I thought I saw an email.
At an upcoming meeting. Hearing none, may I have a motion, please, to adjourn? Thank you, Gerard Bromsky. Is there a second? Thank you, Paul. The meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you.